Hello, everybody, and welcome to Penguins to Go, your daily dose of Pittsburgh Penguins news and analysis. You can find us on YouTube at Inside the Penguins or anywhere you get your podcasts from. Well, folks, we've nearly made it. The Penguins open up the on-ice portion of their training camp in just over 24 hours. 24 hours and 21 minutes, the Penguins take the ice to begin their first actual on-ice sessions of the 2023-24 season. So I figured what I would do here today is give you a quick rundown of some of the top storylines and camp battles to keep an eye on over the next 2 weeks. First thing is the biggest thing, is the thing that most people will be watching when they go up to Cranberry to UPMC Lemieux Sports Complex. It's no secret. All eyes will be on number 65 for the Pittsburgh Penguins this season. How will Erik Karlsson look in his first couple of weeks in a Pittsburgh Penguins uniform? Now, he has been in Pittsburgh for about a week and a half, 2 weeks now, getting some on-ice sessions in less mandatory ways, playing with some of his new teammates, getting the chemistry built up. But how will it look once it's introduced to organized team activities? We all expect him to play alongside Marcus Pettersson on the second pairing. That's what has been said since August 6th when he was traded to the Pittsburgh Penguins is, okay, Ryan Graves, Chris Letang, Marcus Pettersson, Erik Karlsson. That's probably how it's going to work out. We'll wait and see. Although that is expected, how will those two work together early on? Last year, reports were Pettersson, Petrie working together very well. Let's see if Pettersson and Karlsson do the same here. Obviously, the other thing to keep an eye out for once they actually start to work on the power play, what does that look like? Who are the five guys? Erik Karlsson is, again, expected to be the point and the quarterback on the Penguins' top power play unit this season, but does Chris Letang get bounced to the second unit? Does he move over to the left half wall, bouncing Rickard Rakell to the second unit? Who fits in the front of the net with Jake Guentzel likely not going to be on the ice because he's still recovering from that ankle injury? We'll talk about that in a second. What does that unit look like, and do they run the same system? Does Todd Reirden say, you know what, Karlsson, you come in, we think this system actually fits your game style very well, you assimilate to us, or will the Pittsburgh Penguins assimilate to having a player of the magnitude of Erik Karlsson and the skill set of Erik Karlsson on the back end there? That's what you're going to have to keep an eye out for watching good old 65 take the ice for the first time in the black and gold over the next couple of weeks. I mentioned Jake Guentzel. That's going to be another big storyline, albeit a storyline that is not too pressing, considering the fact that as of the last time we heard from Kyle Dubas, he only expects Jake Guentzel to miss maybe a handful of games. 5 or 6 is the number that's been floated out there. We'll have to wait and see, obviously. Listen, he was doing season ticket deliveries over the weekend or earlier in the week, and he was wearing slides. Wasn't wearing a walking boot. Of course, it's been a month and a half since his surgery. He's halfway through that timetable, that 12 weeks that was expected for his recovery. He's in week 6 or 7 at this point, so we'll wait and see if he gets on the ice at training camp and what capacity. I would imagine you might see him maybe before these practices if you get there a little bit early, practicing with the training staff on his own. But in his absence, here's the storyline. Who becomes Sidney Crosby's line mate for the start of the season? When the puck is dropped on October 10th, Sidney Crosby will be at center ice at PPG Paints Arena. Connor Bedard of the Chicago Blackhawks will be across from him. Who will be on Crosby's left? Well, it's not a long-term position. Somebody needs to step up, and that's what we're going to figure out here in the next 2 weeks. Newcomer Riley Smith is a candidate to move up, but there is something to be said for getting him reps alongside Evgeny Malkin. It is highly, again, expected that Riley Smith is going to play with Evgeny Malkin and just slot right into that Jason Zucker role where Zucker has been the last couple of seasons. Smith obviously is a versatile player that brings penalty killing, power play, offense, and a 200-foot game, playing defense as well. So certainly somebody that would mesh well with Sidney Crosby, you would expect. But when you have that, and you know you're going to want to put Guentzel there when he returns, why not leave Riley Smith with Malkin and let them start to build that chemistry from the jump? So Smith is a candidate, but again, there might be an opportunity for a younger player to jump up and get that opportunity early in the season. Somebody like Rem Pitlick. He's shown offensive upside in his NHL career, and he potentially could fit really well next to Sidney Crosby. He has the skills, he has the talent, he has the tools that you typically see in Crosby line mates. It's more of a, I don't want to say Dom Simone light. It's the other direction. It's a step above what Dom Simone was, as in Rem Pitlick can actually score goals when he gets opportunities. Sorry, Dom Simone catching strays 3 years after he left the team. But, Pitlick is up there. I'm sure Alex Nylander might get an opportunity up there. And then there's a dark horse in my mind. And again, I keep coming back to this player, and some people might roll their eyes that have listened to this show as I continue to bring him up, yet he's only played one game in the NHL. That's Valtteri Puustinen. And I will continue to hammer home the fact that last season, the first week of training camp, Valtteri Puustinen was practicing with Sidney Crosby and Jake Guentzel. If he's there to start this time, there might be a little bit more to it, because as we all know, Valtteri Puustinen didn't get the call despite leading the Wilkes-Barre-Scranton Penguins in scoring last season. So that's another storyline to watch, is who is going to be playing next to Crosby early in the season, and will that player be there just simply to hold the water and to tread water until Jake Guentzel comes back, and then they get dropped either out of the lineup entirely, down to Wilkes-Barre, or just down to maybe the third line or fourth line. That's going to be something to keep an eye on, not just over the next 2 weeks, but over the next month as Guentzel starts to get back into the game and gets back onto the ice. The biggest story, at least in quantity, is position battles, right? There is more open spots and more spots up for grabs than I think we have ever seen entering Pittsburgh Penguins training camp. At least in the last 8 years, to be conservative, there's more competition than we have seen in the last 8 years. Let's say that conservatively, because when you look at the bottom six, let's start there. Center spots, likely already decided. Lars Eller, Noel Acciari. They were both brought in early in free agency. Lars Eller, Dubas and Eller, both in their media availabilities, practically said he was brought in to be the third line center this season. So yes, you can pencil him into third line center, and Noel Acciari, I think, fits pretty much exactly what you want out of a fourth line center. He can play the wing, but I think looking at everybody else, he's the more natural fit at center for the Pittsburgh Penguins on the fourth line. Matt Nieto and Jeff Carter figure to get a lineup spot as well. Carter, I know what everybody's going to say. Get him out, put him on the healthy scratch list. I'm not so sure that's going to happen. Now, he certainly does get a lineup spot. The Penguins, as Dubas mentioned, are probably going to carry 22 players into the beginning of the season with one extra forward, one extra defenseman. That's at least the goal going into camp. I don't know if Carter's going to be that extra forward. He obviously isn't going to be sent down. He can't. It just makes no sense from a money standpoint. But it feels like they're going to try to get something out of the 38-year-old. You can't just carry that dead weight with your only reserve spot on the NHL roster. So they're going to try to get something out of him. And who knows, maybe with the long summer off, maybe with the knowledge that this is probably his last season in the NHL, and maybe he needs to leave a good taste in Hall of Fame voters' mouths to get over the hump and get into the Hockey Hall of Fame in Toronto. Maybe he has a, I'm doing air quotes here, resurgent season, meaning he looks more like the guy that the Penguins saw when they first acquired him from LA a couple of seasons ago, and less like the guy that was an absolute boat anchor last season. So that's Jeff Carter. Matt Nieto, similar to Lars Eller and Noel Acciari, he wasn't brought in here to be benched, right? Again, if he is absolutely god-awful and horrible, there's plenty of people to take his spot, as we'll talk about. But I don't foresee that happening, right? Kyle Dubas said that he was trying to get Matt Nieto when he was in Toronto. This isn't a guy that he's just getting to and saying, oh, okay, that would fit in Pittsburgh. This is a guy that he wanted in Toronto as well, so expect Matt Nieto to get a spot. But that leaves 2 lineup spots and the healthy scratch still available. So 3 spots on the opening day roster for a heck of a lot of players. Drew O'Connor enters camp with a leg up in my eyes. Mike Sullivan loves him. He plays a fast style, a physical style. He is an absolute menace on the forecheck and pretty good on the back check as well. And as we saw at the World Championships earlier this year, he has a little bit of scoring touch to him. Maybe a potential third-line left wing. If not, certainly a fourth-line left wing. So I do think that Drew O'Connor enters with a leg up in camp. Rem Pitlick could also battle for one of these spots. I mentioned him as a potential replacement for Jake Gensel early in the season. He was the throw-in on the Erik Karlsson trade. So, again, somebody that brings a little bit more offense to a bottom six that is 5/6, or at least going to be 5/6 defensive forwards. Rem Pitlick, not great defensively, certainly brings that level of offense. But then there's a whole bunch of other names. Alex Nylander, probably towards the top of the depth chart entering camp. Andreas Johnsson, Vinny Hinostroza, Valtteri Pustin, and I already mentioned. Sam Poulin, as we talked about yesterday, was impressive at the Prospects Challenge. What does he do to build off of that at training camp? Radim Zahorna is back. Colin White is in on a PTO. Austin Wagner is in on a PTO. So many names, and a general manager / president of hockey operations that has already mentioned he's not afraid to use waivers to get the best team possible at the NHL level. So that's the forward side. Defensively, the third pairing is a crapshoot. I mean, not a crapshoot. You have a lot of good options there. It's a roll of the dice right now because the incumbent defenders on that pairing are P.O. Joseph and Chad Ruhwedel, because those are the only two in this group that spent the entire season at the NHL level with the Pittsburgh Penguins last season. P.O. Joseph on the left, Chad Ruhwedel on the right. Really hot on their tails is Ty Smith. I've said it multiple times in the lead up to training camp. I'll say it again here. Ty Smith outperformed P.O. Joseph last fall in Cranberry. If it wasn't for his waiver eligibility, or waiver ineligibility, I guess it would be, Ty Smith would have made the team last year. And he would have played more than the 9 games that he ended up playing all season. If he does it again, it's going to be tough to see. I don't think that they could send P.O. Joseph through waivers. I don't think that that would work because I think somebody would snag him considering how he performed last season. But there's a chance P.O. Joseph is not on that opening day lineup. There's a chance he becomes the extra defenseman to start the season. There's a chance Ty Smith overtakes that role. A very, realistic possibility. Mark Friedman is also there. He's been in the Penguins organization. He was the first move of the Ron Hextall era was a waiver claim of Mark Friedman. He's been reliable since he's come to Pittsburgh. So again, gets another opportunity here in a new not a new organization, but gets an opportunity here with a new head of the organization in Kyle Dubas. Mark Pysyk is in on a PTO. Again, big-bodied right shot defenseman. He's somebody that if the Penguins want some size on the bottom end, he's going to be the guy that they go to. And Will Butcher is also, in the mix. There are some rumors that he's facing an injury and dealing with an injury right now, but we will have to see. I don't believe he was injured on the roster that was sent out by the Penguins yesterday, but I'll have to take a look at that, and I'll leave it in the comments, which you should check out. So those are 3 of the biggest storylines. The other storyline to watch is just the new faces. The last thing I'll say is keep an eye out for these new guys and how they start to fit in with the Penguins and how the Penguins start to use them early in camp. It's not how they're going to use them all season, but really it is what is the first impression of this coaching staff on this player and what do they think of them coming in. Now, training camp is made for people to subvert expectations, to be different than what was expected of them. But we'll get a chance to see what the coaching staff thought coming into camp of these new guys. Ryan Graves. I'm high on him. We're going to have to wait and see. He's obviously going to have the weight of the world on his shoulders playing alongside Chris Letang or potentially, at some times, Erik Karlsson. So we'll wait and see what Ryan Graves is able to do. The Penguins gave him the bag, $4.5 million for 6 seasons, I believe. So they locked him up really for the rest of his really productive part of his career, right? You bring in Riley Smith. How's the not defending, but the guy that scored the game-winning goal for the Vegas Golden Knights in the Stanley Cup Final? Yeah, that guy. How is he going to fit in alongside Evgeny Malkin? I already talked about that a little bit. And then the last name I'll bring up here is Alex Nedeljkovic. For the first time in 3 seasons, the Penguins have a new goaltending tandem. Tristan Jarry is still the starter, but it's not Casey DeSmith behind him. Casey DeSmith is now 2 degrees of separation separated from the Penguins because he was traded to Montreal in the Karlsson trade, and yesterday he was traded to the Vancouver Canucks. Surprise, surprise, Jim Rutherford, Patrick Allvin, they like Casey DeSmith. So, Nedeljkovic, how does he perform? Especially because, my colleague Nick Horwat put on InsideThePenguins.com the other day. There's a chance Magnus Hellberg can come out and if Nedeljkovic isn't on his game, Hellberg can earn that spot. So we'll have to wait and see. But Nedeljkovic is certainly somebody else you want to keep your eyes on entering training camp. But that's it. 15 minutes, a lot of information, but training camp begins tomorrow. We here on the tip of the Ice-Burgh will have an interview with Penguins play-by-play announcer for Sportsnet Pittsburgh, Josh Getzoff, for you tomorrow as we break down the opening of Penguins training camp and continue to talk about some of these major storylines. But that's going to be it for this one. We'll see you guys next time.